Good day. I'm going to step right into it with both feet. Why is it that the trans movement is gaining and has such an incredible amount of steam? My thoughts are there malicious intents behind this? Is it just coincidence? Or is it just the whims of fate? I believe we create our own destiny, so let's cast that aside. Coincidences don't occur one after another. That's not how coincidences work. And thus we're left with something similar to what was occurring in the Weimar Republic. What is a transgender person? Precisely, medically. A transgender individual is someone who believes, again, this is a belief, that they have been misplaced into the wrong physical body. If this is possible in any way, shape, or form, I do not have any disdain for these individuals. It's more of a curiosity, a pondering, really. Because I think, of course, it would be interesting to know what it's like to be the other sex. To know what it's like to give birth to children. To know what it's like to actually feel things in more than the 5 basic feelings that most men feel. I think that would be quite interesting. But, and this is a but, I don't, with any amount of evidence, see how someone could be born into the incorrect body, barring being born with 2 genitalia and the doctor picking one at birth for whatever reason. That again is between the doctor, the parents, and God. I don't think that would be a very wise decision to make. I think that the individual should choose what they'd like to keep themselves, and unless you are of religious inclination, you really shouldn't even be circumcised. The reasons behind that have long been, it's no longer necessary. We clean properly, we have good soaps. Therefore, you don't really need to worry about it unless you're, a rather dirty individual and your skin gets infected. Returning to transgenderism. What I see in this is a direct malicious intent by the neoliberal establishment to eradicate the homosexual population. And this is not without a decent amount of evidence. This is why I spoke of the Weimar Republic. Homosexuality has always been seen as one of man's greatest sins, because homosexuals tend, and this is not an absolute, but they tend towards an extraordinary debauchery throughout their life. The Library of Hate Facts, goes into a fair amount of depth here, where the reason that so many diseases and complications arise in the homosexual community is because of their deep carnal lust, their deep sexual desires controlling them. And it would make sense if 2 guys are together. There's no balancing factor. There's no woman in the process to, tell you to knock your nonsense off. It would make sense that, you're going to work and then screw. You don't have to worry about kids. You don't have to worry about anything else. And all you're thinking about is how to get more money so that you can dive deeper into the debauchery. It makes sense. It's what a lot of functioning addicts do for drug users. Where can I make the most amount of money so that I can do the most amount of drugs and feel X, Y, or Z. It really does make sense. The problem is within a society, you have a lot of these, homosexuals. They group together in order to make, how can I say this without getting booted off of YouTube? They attempt to lower the age of all consent, as well as increase the permissibility of their debaucherous acts, such as in California, there was a bill proposed not long ago by a gay man, specifically targeted to the gay community, which would take away the penalties for statutory rape on minors from sex. Well, we look into this. Why was it a gay man? Why was it targeting the gay community? And why would you want to weaken statutory rape penalties? That doesn't make any sense to the average individual. Now, you can say, an 18-year-old and a 19-year-old, okay, there's some leeway there, sure. But that's not exactly what's happening. A lot of these homosexual men are much older, 35, 45, 55, and they're with 15-year-olds. Milo Yiannopoulos said this, and this is what got him essentially booted off of the internet for quite a while. This is not anything new. This is widely reported, where the vast majority of homosexual men were raped when in their adolescence or earlier. So, knowing that this is a compound issue, where one continues to create another negative circumstance through predatory actions, what would the neoliberal establishment want to do in order to alleviate most of this? Well, one way to do it is get a lot of these people that are showing premature signs of homosexuality or just moral weakness, ineptitudes, and an overwhelming desire to be submissive upon others, greater than themselves, or that they saw as greater than themselves, their elders and so forth. Well, the easiest way to do that is to essentially disfigure them, to make them less than what they were, then to depress them into a state to which they will take their own life. Transgenders have approximately a 40% chance of suicide. This has little to do with societal factors. This has most of this has to do with the mental complications of what they are, what they choose to do, and how they see themselves. So, if your desire is to destroy and eradicate the homosexual population, the best way to go about it is to create the absolute worst circumstance upon society. By that I mean creating many of these transgender youths, destroying their life, and then they're going to come back and they're going to blame the homosexuality, because most of these people were prematurely, before they were transgenders, or before they were coerced into becoming transgenders, they were most likely just going to grow up and be gay, or realize that, if they're a guy, women start looking pretty good around the age of, 14, 15, 16, 17, you're going through high school, things happen. They're doing exactly what makes sense to the neoliberal establishment, which is to get rid of the other. And if you want to control the masses, you want one way to look at everyone. You want everyone to essentially be the same and think the same. That means that homosexuality and transgenderism and many of these other sexual deviancies will be eradicated in the process. This is what happened under USSR, in Cuba, Venezuela. All of these top-down, guess you could say, governmental styles, if you're being kind, they got rid of everything that wasn't ordinary. Because anything out of the ordinary causes people to think and wonder, and they deviate from what they're being told, because if there are things beyond the ordinary, well, there must be other ways of life. That's why I believe this is such a sinister thing. It's I could almost say this without a doubt. This is malicious. And these people are being led by the nose into the blender. No different than the USSR and the Weimar Republic, or otherwise known as Nazi Germany. The homosexuals there were forced into sex change surgeries. Essentially, what they're doing now is they're telling anyone who has any form of even an inkling that they believe that they're in the wrong body in some circumstance, or they have a curiosity. And I think, again, a curiosity is something that everyone has. When you're with your wife, your girlfriend, your significant other, whatever they are, and, obviously they're of a different physical persuasion than you, by that I mean the opposite sex, you see them acting in a completely different manner than how you would act in a similar situation. Of course you wonder what it's like to be them. That's human nature. That's a good thing. The problem is, at our current level of technology, that is completely impossible. One cannot simply become something completely foreign. It's as if you want to turn a man into a dog, or a dog into a man. Maybe at some point in the future, this becomes a possibility. But currently it's not. The most recent example of anything close to this is there was a man who had a head transplant surgery. Essentially, he was paralyzed, and they attempted, or they're going to, I forget exactly if they've pushed it back, but they were attempting to put one person's head upon another person's body. One brain dead person, they're using that person's body, and they're going to put someone who's not brain dead, but essentially their body is a quadriplegic, onto that body and see if it works. Now, I have a lot of medical background, and I think that this is absolutely fascinating. If it works, that would be amazing, without a doubt. Especially with a lot of the increases in medical technologies, they can 3D print bones and your liver and a lot of your organs now. So if this is possible, we could help a lot of people. Sure. No ifs, ands, or buts. But we're not there yet. And we have 10, 20, 30, maybe even 40 years to go until we get to that level. So why is it that so many people are being coerced into believing that there's something they are not? Again, I bring this up. A man cannot become a dog. You can act like a dog. You can bark like a dog. But you will never be a dog, so long as we do not have the overwhelming medical technology to get you there. Such as the way with the transgenders. I feel terrible seeing these people lied to. They're not becoming happier. These individuals, whenever they give press conferences or anything of the like, stunning and brave, empowered, when they speak, they're almost shuddering. There's something definitely like almost a fear throughout everything they say. And obviously this is me looking at another person. I can't exactly understand what it is that they're going through or feeling or what have you. But having a couple near-death experiences and having a good amount of trauma in my past, I at least can tell when someone is afraid. And if you're an actor or a movie star or a sports athlete you've been interviewed dozens of times, and now you just look like you've fallen off of a mountain, face first into the dirt. You have no idea where you are, what you're doing. That's a worrying symptom for someone saying that they're happy and everything is great now that they've transitioned. Now, I'll bring this back to where I have a decent amount of medical experience. I've assisted surgeons in performing sex reassignment surgery. It is extremely nasty and disturbing procedure. I would not wish this upon anyone, especially with the very negative side effects that can occur because of it. But again, it is the individual's choice. I don't like the mainstream large institutions pushing something that is not founded. It's founded on sand, let's say that. Most of the studies are inconclusive at best, or they're propaganda at worst. It doesn't make any sense why you're sending so many good men and women towards a path where they have a higher chance of killing themselves than ever holding any form of happiness. That simply doesn't make sense to me. And having several gay friends, I would not wish this upon them, because it's deliberately being targeted towards people that when they grew up, they would most likely be homosexuals, which is, some can say it's bad for society, it's whatever. We have our own societal ills that may be leading towards homosexuality. Like I said before, statutory rape and so forth, sure. Which we need to alleviate those things, fix them, if you will. But it doesn't do any good to tell these men, to whom the powers that be absolutely despise, and it goes without question that they're being used as pawns, just complete disposable scapegoats, in order to achieve some kind of malicious agenda. This has been the last Cro-Magnon. Thank you very much, folks, and take care.